Chapter 7. Brett sat alone in the park, swaying back and forth on the same swing that had gotten him into this mess. He wasn't sure what he was thinking. It was like he had automatically kissed May. It wasn't involuntary. It was magnetic. It was great. No, not great. He still had his non-May girlfriend, who he no longer deserved. He still had no plan on how to break up with Hannah, but he knew that he had no choice but to do it tonight. Brett stood up from the swing and started the short trek to Hannah's house. Hannah lived in Old Town, just a couple blocks from Brett's family home. The residential blocks, usually plastered with an aged charm, now looked dark and somewhat menacing. Brett felt like the whole town was against him and May. In reality, no one outside of him and May knew or cared about the sticky situation he had just caused. He arrived at Hannah's house, walked up the 3 steps to her front door, and knocked loudly. Hannah answered the door with tears in her eyes. Crap, who told her? How did she already know? Brett wanted to be the one to break her the news, but he needed an hour to work up the courage, and now it was too late. I'm so happy you're here, Hannah said, throwing her arms around Brett and squeezing him tight, forcing a small exhale from his soiled lips. You are? Brett asked, a little more shocked than he had intended. It's been a rough day. Great. This was going to be even worse than he had prepared for. My dad had an emergency. Is he okay? The doctor says he'll be fine eventually. His face just started drooping, so we rushed him to the hospital. Brett was relieved to hear that the doctor was optimistic. There was no hospital, no doctor, no nurses, or medics in St. Farr. If you had a health emergency out here, you may be as good as dead. Hannah continued. He's fine now, she gestured inside with one hand. He has meds, and he's sleeping on the couch. She wiggled a bit closer to Brett, pulling his arms around her and forcing a squeeze. After some quick calculations, Brett decided it was better to be honest and break up with Hannah in spite of this recent development. It would be even worse in the future for future Brett if he waited until things settled at Hannah's home, and future Brett already had taken enough of current Brett's problems. He took a deep breath, unwrapped his arms, and told Hannah that he had kissed May. Hannah just looked at him in shocked silence. Then she shook her head, knocking a few tears loose from the corners of her eyes. How could you do that to me? Brett wished he knew. There was never a good way to break up with someone, but he tried to make it as gentle as possible.